All right, everybody, here we go with game number 2. If you want to see game 1, it is linked in the description. But if you want to beat some of the Amethyst decks that seem to be dominating the meta, I mean the Southside Gaming tournament, the first major tournament for Set 7's release, just concluded on the Saturday after the set release on March the 8th, and 7 out of the 8 decks were Sapphire decks, and the only other deck was an Emerald Steel. But in that tournament overall, Purple Steel had a decent representation, and it is going to be one of the decks I think that you can use to just race, I guess you could say, the Sapphire decks. We need a lot of testing to see just how effective that's going to be long term and what different tools you can use. But the Merlin Min packages have traditionally been very strong since their release in set 2. But you know, I think Purple Steel is in a decent spot. The question is, can they race fast enough? Because you do have some item removal with the steel cards, and then of course you have the very powerful draw and lore gain engines of Amethyst. And will that be enough to slow down these item decks? We'll have to wait and see. Again, if you want to see the deck list portion of this video, or of this deck, sorry, make sure you check out the next video that I post and that you're subscribed so that you get that. And again, members get access to that stuff a little early. And then again, we'll do the meta reports on the recent events after the set release a little bit later, so stay tuned for those videos as well. But you can see here on turn 1, you know, the Chernobog follows, we don't banish it so that we can bounce it back with the Snake. My friend here opts to not play a turn 1 play. They ink their Hidden Cove instead of playing it out on turn 1, which makes sense if they know it's just going to get outed right away anyways. And then they play a Diablo by inking an Ursula Deceiver, and this tells me, you know, you may think like that's a weird play, like why wouldn't you take the option to rip the song if I have a song, because they know I'm on Purple Steel, and you know, you play better on curve. The Ursula, you know, obviously sees the hand anyways, but it's the same as the Diablo. But this is clearly setting up for a Diablo shift. They want to get the value right away off that shift Diablo, turn it sideways, and maybe they have a second Ursula Deceiver, right? This is what that tells me, is that they have the ability to rip the song out of my hand, or, you know, knowing that they are on, I was just about to say, Emerald, they have the contingency in the Bare Necessities. This card, I've talked about how powerful this card is, and I'm surprised it hasn't really been utilized more. But they don't play it because, again, they didn't see a song with the Diablo, so they end up discarding it for the Shift Diablo, and not knowing that I drew a Zeus for the turn after that they saw my hand with the 1-drop Diablo. So I draw a second Zeus, and normally this would be really bad. You know, drawing double unlinkables here. 1 Zeus is fine, but I'd ideally want to see like a Strength or a Storm or something like that. But I end up just hard casting the Zeus. Again, you might be thinking, wouldn't it be better to play Rabbit and then have Rabbit sing the Along Came Zeus? Yes, but I don't want to be giving too many draws to the discard deck. You got to remember, when you play against discard, in certain matchups and certain scenarios, it's okay to give them a couple of draws depending on what cards you have. But in general, you want to deal with the threat right away. You do want your 3-cost songs because they're a little bit more efficient. But this is where, you know, if you play Purple Steel, you have to be aware of this counter synergy. And I think I talked about this in game 1, where you're bouncing your cards back, you're banishing your 1-drops for, like, you know, draw. You want your Diablo 1-drops to be banished. You want your Brooms and your Chernobog to be banished. But then that counter synergizes with something like Strength of the Raging Fire, which you definitely want to make sure that you have a lot of characters on board to keep safe. And here, we weren't on the mics on this match, so we were chatting in the chat box here. But yeah, I think he's like, you know, what the heck? Like, I just saw your hand and you draw double Zeus. And I'm like, yeah, you thought you were safe. He's like, apparently not when you draw 2 removal spells and 3 draws. Yeah, I mean, that's just how it goes sometimes. I definitely got a little bit lucky there. Unfortunately, my opponent has the Lucifer, and this is my fault for not playing around a You Have Forgotten Me or a Lucifer there. I should have kept the extra card in hand instead of inking it that turn, and as a result, I lose my Rabbit and my Pete. Both cards, I mean, Pete is definitely the blowout card against these discard decks because it stops all of their powerful songs, actions in general. But the Rabbit is a good draw engine as well. So I play Fox, bounce back the White Rose, and ink it because I don't want to give them any more value off of their discard spells like their Sun Chills or their You Have Forgotten Me. So now they technically have a few dead cards in their deck, but they have 4 cards in hand and a Lucifer on board. I do have 6 ink, and my top decks are usually going to be pretty good, and I'm already on 9 lore. They play out the new card once again in the Tramp. Street Smart Dog, I believe is the subtitle there on that one. And again, you can see just how good this card is, man. Like, reduce the cost by 1 for each character, able to draw cards equal to the number of characters, and then you discard that many, so it helps you filter your hand, which is super strong. We top deck a Friends on the other side, which again, very good top deck. So you can definitely argue that I got lucky in this match. My friend here didn't necessarily misplay from what I can see, or play badly. I mean, again, I don't know what's in their hand, but I just happened to, draw my way out of their discard. But to be fair, that's what Amethyst Steel does. Like, you can play off the top because you have so many instant lore gain cards. You just need to keep pushing for game, and then you do have a draw engine, and that's the versatility of this deck. You even saw this in the last meta, right at the North American Championships, where a lot of purple steels did make the top 8, top 16, top 8. They have the ability to alter their game style based on the match that they're going up against, right? They can utilize a heavy draw engine to keep their hand very healthy. They can utilize very efficient forms of removal with the Amethyst Rush cards like Mims and stuff, and then the steel removal options. So there's a number of different ways that you can adapt playing your your Amethyst Steel deck to suit the matchup, and that's one of the reasons why this is a top deck in the format, and it's just made stronger by cards like Cobra. To be honest, there's cases to be made where you may not want to play Cobra, but I think in the general meta it will be fairly strong, because into the Sapphire decks, all of the cards that would normally target the Cobra anyways would probably deal damage and or take it out. The only downside is like a Strength and a Storm would cause your Cobra to be banished under every circumstance, whereas under certain circumstances, the Storm would only deal 2 damage, the Strength may only deal 1 or whatever, and then your opponent gets good value off of their songs in the Steel Sapphire matchups, but they can't target it with Brawl or anything anyways. So for that reason, the Cobra could be pretty good. An overstated body that comes in, can contest the board very, very well, obviously, and get you that 2 lore instantly, which is, again, just another non-questing source of lore. So here we're just going to continue to push our advantage. My opponent is keeping all of their stuff ready. My guess is they are waiting to play that Kita Under the Sea line, but they don't have it, and they did discard an Under the Sea off of the Tramp. So that might be indicating that they have another Under the Sea in their hand. Oh, I said, I didn't gain from Go. I think my counter, you can see that I'm trying to click on it and it doesn't make me gain. But he said he did it for me. So I was like, oh, okay, that's good. For some reason, the game was like a little bit bugged with the lore counter, but I am at 12. The opponent here, again, not wanting to trade their Tramp and their Muses into the Fox. It would cause the Muses to get banished, so they just pass. We top deck a Zeus, and the Tramp being a 2/6 is a little annoying because it means that we can't necessarily deal with it. I have this Zeus in hand. I can't ink it. So do I want to play it out? I cannot target the Muses. I can't deal with the Tramp either. I can put 5 damage on it, but it's pointless because they could always bounce it back with the Muses as well and then use it to re-scry. And that's another powerful interaction. Muses being able to bounce back Tramp is very, very good. I said, you can see me in the chat there. I say 2/6 is kind of nice there. My friend top decks the Bruno, so I gain lore off of, again, it's not increasing for me. I gain lore off of the Goat bounce, and then it's discarded, and then the Muses resolves and bounces back my Diablo. Do they have further discard for my Diablo? No, they don't. I don't think. So they end up clearing my board, and now they can start to quest. But again, they're quite behind, and they don't have the board build up that they normally would be going for. Questing for 2, or 3 in this case now because of Tramp plus the Muses, but Tramp challenged this turn. I can't ready my stuff. I'm saying there, this matchup was a little bugged in terms of the controls for some reason. And I know you guys in the comments are going to be like, oh, you could use all these shortcuts and stuff. Yeah. Like, we just like to play the game that way that we know. So, I mean, maybe eventually I'll get very versed with tabletop, but we top deck a Smee here, and we just play out our hand once again and put the opponent on. You just need to have the constant answers to my board. And this is where, this kind of game state is kind of where I think the Emerald decks really fall down, especially the ones that rely on bounce, which obviously is a key component or a key mechanic of Emerald. It's like, you can put me a turn behind, and usually that is very good, but if you can't really capitalize on it, like, I just consistently replay my stuff, and you are just gonna go negative, basically, right? Like, they're in a situation now where they are not gaining lore fast enough, then I'm able to replay my cards, and they're constantly just losing card advantage. trying to slow me down like tempo wise, but I still have my cards. They haven't removed my cards. They haven't discarded my cards. And you can see there they kind of just give up because they're like, yeah, I have Under the Sea, I have a Prince John. They never saw their Kita. If they did see a Kita top deck, you know, you could argue that that would buy them again, yet some more turns, and they're building up a board. And then my top decks, you can see there would not have been very good. Like strength on no characters, if they did have the Under the Sea proc with the Kita, would be very bad. But yeah, this discard deck is definitely something that is a force in this meta, I think. It can definitely deal with the Sapphire decks. It's just a good deck that can beat anything in the format. It can also lose to anything in the format, right? But it definitely got better with the addition of Tramp. It's definitely a really good card. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. So Purple Steel ends up taking that one in a 2-0 victory against Discard. Again, I did get kind of lucky with my top decks, but Purple Steel is kind of what they do. Let me know what you think in the comment section below if you made it this far. And again, the deck profile will be coming soon. Thank you again for watching. Quantum is out.